How do you get started in commercial real estate investing, specifically retail? That's what we're discussing today. If this is the first time we're meeting, my name is Tim Diesel. I'm a commercial real estate consultant. This channel is designed to give you tips and strategies in your business or for your clients. Okay, so we're gonna start off looking for retail. Retail properties that are not talking about anchor centers. We're not talking about gigantic power centers. We're talking about strip centers specifically. And I will go along and I'll break them down for you a little more, but I want to get you something to get you started. And let's talk about 10,000 square feet. All right, so we're looking at 10,000 square feet just to kind of get us started. A little less, a little more, that's fine. That's the beginning of our retail search. All right, so we're looking for 10,000 square feet. We want 80% occupancy. That means you don't want to have too much vacancy where you got to step in and you got to do all kinds of work. It's not what you want to do. For your beginning investment, that's going to get you way more headache than it's even worth. If there are 5 stores, all right, let's say it's a pizza shop, a barber, whatever else, 5 stores, and one of them is empty, that's kind of what you want. You do not want to go there and the entire building is empty and you got to get in there and do all kinds of work. That's going to be really tough for your first investment. Remember, we're beginning retail investors here. We're taking a stab at this. So why would we want to make our lives so much more difficult than it has to be? This should be very simple, and maybe not very simple, but you want it to be as simple as possible. So you don't want too much vacancy. So the first thing you want to look for is 80% occupancy. Not too much vacancy, it's very, very important. Now, the next thing you want to look for in a building is 3 years left on the lease. Now, you got to be very careful. If you go into a retail center and you're talking to the owner or the broker and you're asking them for their tenant leases, they're not going to give them to you, but they'll give you the lease term, all right? So you say, listen, I know you have a Subway sandwich shop in there. How long are they expected to stay? They're not going to give you the entire 30-page lease, but they're going to tell you, okay, they're here maybe for another couple more years, 3 more years, 5 more years. I like 5 years remaining on the lease, but 3 years is okay. Anything 6 months, something like that, the bank is not going to look at that loan. They're not going to even do it for you. You really want to get something with 3 years left on the lease. Now, if you have 4 or 5 tenants and there's 3, 5, 6 years left on all their leases, you're in a pretty decent position here. Sometimes retail vacancies can last for years, right? Could take you 6 months, could take you a year, 2 years to fill up the space. So you don't want to get yourself in a spot where the leases are really weak. It's very tough to get financing. That's not very good for you on your very first deal. The last thing you want to look at is tenant mix. So you want a good mix of tenants. If there is 3 tenants, if there's 4, there's 5, it doesn't matter how many tenants there are, you want a good mix of tenants. You don't want all the same thing. You don't want a whole bunch of restaurants. You want a little bit of everything. So that's very important. So the first thing you're going to look at is pretty much how vacant the building is. And if you're somewhat interested, you'll be able to see by the tenant mix, right? There's no order on this because you may not get the information on the property until later. And then you want 3 years left on the lease. After that, you can start looking at this, and you're not even analyzing numbers. We're not doing any of that yet. I'm going to give you that in different videos. All we're doing right now is we're just dipping our toe in the water. We're trying to see if we can get into retail. What are we looking at? So you're looking at small strip centers, and you want maybe a little bit of vacancy. If there's no vacancy, even better, right? You don't want to go less than 80% occupancy. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And 3 years left on the lease. Now, you don't have to have franchise tenants, but those are preferred. And then you're going to be looking at the tenant mix. What kind of tenants are there? All right, when we're talking about retail, specifically its location. Location is the most important thing of any retail property. So the first thing you need to look at is location. Now, I want you to think about this. In office, warehouse, even multifamily, location is really not as important because it doesn't have to be on the main street or really in a part of town where everybody's walking. You don't want an apartment building where everybody's driving every day. That'd be crazy. In your office building, it really doesn't make sense because you may not have a lot of tenants that come in and out. A warehouse is usually out in the middle of nowhere. Industrial property. In a retail location, it's got to be in a right location. Everything else we can change. We can change the facade, the exterior, the windows, lighting. We cannot change the location. In retail, the first thing is location, so keep that in mind. All right, number 2 are leases. The leases are the most important thing in any retail property. They're more important than the building, actually, because a beautiful building that's vacant is worthless to an investor. But if you have really good quality leases, even in a small building, if you have a Dunkin' Donuts or whatever else, Starbucks or something with a 10 or a 15-year lease, that's fantastic, right? So the leases are more valuable than the property. So we got to keep your eyes on good quality leases. What types of leases are they? Are they triple net leases? Are they gross leases? It just kind of depends, right? What have you have worked into the deal? Depending on your type of investment style, every lease, every property is going to be different. So after we found a good location, what types of leases are in place? And that's going to help us really determine what we're looking for, how we're looking for it. All right, another bonus tip I'll give you, if you're a broker, if you're like me and sometimes you have to find the right investment for the right client, it really depends on everything, right? So now I've kind of helped you how to find it because I want you to see the eyes of the investor. Now, if you're a broker, a lot of times you don't take into account what the investor is looking at, what they're thinking about. So take a step back and ask yourself, who's your client? Who's buying this property? If it's an older, maybe young, little older couple or individual and somewhat retirement age, really wants hands off, then you're going to want probably a triple net setup, long-term lease, maybe a rental bump every year or so, not too much hands-on. If it's going to be a younger person, then you want to get them into something that they can maybe get a little dirty, a little more upside, more on the acquisition, more fix up, more, the more they have to do. It just kind of depends. So if the investment has less return, or the cap rate could be maybe 6%, 5%, somebody that's already done and retired, 5-6% isn't that bad. Like they're just kind of sitting, they need their money to be doing something, right? A younger person starting off, maybe it's their first or second investment, 5% is not very attractive if you're really starting to get things going. In order to get those higher cap rates, the higher return on investments, you really got to get a little more risky. You really want to get things a little more done. So if you're a broker and you're looking for these properties and there's something you necessarily don't know who to place, what to put, these are some things you should look out for. Who's buying this property? Who's going to be the one who's going to ultimately end up with it? And that kind of always helps. Guys, my question for you is, have you started investing in retail? And if you haven't, what's holding you back? That's all I got for you guys today. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Look out for more stuff that I'm bringing to you. We're going to go through a retail phase now. We're done with multifamily. We're going to cover a lot of retail, a lot of different ways we can attack it, buy it, lease it, and ask me questions. If you have comments, leave them below. Reach out to me. I'll definitely get it answered and I'll reply back to everybody. Thank you guys for watching this.